Visual action, shot. Camera begins medium shot of the head and shoulders of a transparent man holding a bowl of Soto Ayam. Slow zoom in as he raises a spoon. The mouth fills the frame as teeth and tongue appear in subsurface detail. Saliva beads form, enamel microstructure visible. The camera eases inward to an extreme close-up of the bolus being formed. He takes a spoonful of Soto Ayam. The flavors are warm. The body begins a quiet chemistry. The tongue positions the spoon. Teeth shear and grind. Saliva, rich with water, mucus, and amylase, wets the solids and begins to loosen carbohydrates. Chewing, mastication reduces particle size and increases surface area so enzymes can work. Oral phase. Mechanical breakdown, incisors, canines, and molars, and mixing with saliva. Saliva contains amylase, pancailmu, which begins starch hydrolysis to maltose and dextrins. Lingual lipase may begin acting on some fats, though main lipid digestion is later. Mucus lubricates the bolus for swallowing. Taste receptors trigger neurosignals that prime gastric secretions. Positive effects at this stage: efficient mastication increases nutrient bioavailability. Saliva has antimicrobial peptides, lysozyme, and lactoferrin that reduce bacterial load. Chewing stimulates satiety hormones via the vagus nerve. Possible negatives: inadequate chewing increases choking risk and reduces digestion efficiency. Overly hot Soto can cause thermal injury to oral mucosa. If the Soto contains pathogenic bacteria, improperly cooked meat, some microbes may survive ingestion. Visual notes include microscopic inset of enzyme action on starch molecules in a subtle, semi-abstract overlay. Surreal, but scientifically accurate. The tongue pushes the bolus back. The epiglottis folds. The bolus slides into the esophagus. Peristalsis, coordinated muscle waves, conduct it to the stomach, where an acidic, enzyme-rich environment suspends food in a churning ocean of digestion. Esophagus. The bolus is moved by coordinated smooth muscle peristalsis. The lower esophageal sphincter relaxes to accept contents. Stomach mechanics. The stomach mixes food with gastric juice. Parietal cells secrete HCl, lowering pH to about 1.5 to 3, denaturing proteins. Chief cells release pepsinogen, which activates to pepsin in acid to cleave peptide bonds. The stomach's muscular contractions, antro-grinding, reduce particles to chyme. Gastric mucosa also secretes intrinsic factor, needed later for B12 absorption, and mucus to protect itself. Positive effects. Protein denaturation and pepsin digestion make amino acids available. Acidic environment kills many ingested pathogens. Intrinsic factor production supports later vitamin B12 absorption. Negative effects or risks. High-fat, high-salt broth, Soto, often rich in sodium and fat, can delay gastric emptying and increase caloric load. H. pylori, if present, can resist acid and damage mucosa, causing gastritis or ulcer risk. Excessive acidity or spicy components can provoke reflux in susceptible people. Visual notes. Render gastric mucosal folds, rugae, with believable surface moisture. Show acid microbubbles and pepsin action with stylized microscopic vignettes, enzymes cleaving peptide chains. Visual action, shot. The camera slowly follows chyme as it exits the pylorus into the duodenum. The small intestine unfurls across the frame, with villi and microvilli rendered as fine, finger-like projections whose surfaces glow with subtle translucence as nutrients pass through. Narration. Chyme is neutralized by bicarbonate from the pancreas. Bile from the liver and gallbladder emulsifies fats. The small intestine is the body's great exchange. sugars, amino acids, fatty acids, a migration from lumen into blood and lymph. Anatomical explanation. Chemical processes. Pancreatic enzymes, amylase, which catalyzes carbohydrates to maltose and dextrins, proteases, trypsin and chymotrypsin, which catalyze proteins to peptides and amino acids, lipase, which catalyzes triglycerides into monoglycerides and free fatty acids. Bile salts emulsify lipids into micelles, enabling lipase access. Fat digestion products are reassembled into triglycerides inside enterocytes and packaged into chylomicrons that enter the lymphatic lacteals. Absorption pathways. Carbohydrates to monosaccharides, absorbed via transporters SGLT1 and GLUT5/2 into blood capillaries of villi. Proteins to amino acids and small peptides are absorbed via sodium-coupled transporters. Fats are absorbed into lymph as chylomicrons and eventually enter systemic circulation via thoracic duct. Positive effects. Nutrients supply energy, glucose, building blocks, amino acids, and essential fats and fat-soluble vitamins A, D, E, and K. Micronutrients such as iron and calcium are absorbed here, with regulatory mechanisms, for example, hepcidin for iron. Negative effects and systemic considerations. High sodium in the broth rapidly raises plasma sodium, which can transiently affect blood pressure and fluid balance. High saturated fat increases postprandial lipemia, elevated triglyceride-rich lipoproteins that can stress endothelial function transiently. Foodborne pathogens such as Salmonella, Campylobacter can invade enterocytes or trigger inflammatory responses, visualized as immune cells mobilizing. Allergens, if present, example egg or certain spices, can trigger immediate hypersensitivity in sensitized individuals. Histamine release and mast cell activation may be shown as localized vascular leakage and immune cell recruitment. Visual notes. Show red capillary networks picking up monosaccharides and amino acids. Show lymphatic lacteals distending with chylomicrons as creamy streams moving toward mesenteric trunks. Subtle non-graphic immune cell activity, macrophages, neutrophils, can be represented as slow-moving semi-transparent cells sampling lumen-derived antigen.
Visual action. Camera travels downstream to the ileocecal valve, then tracks along the large intestine's haustra. The colon's surface is textured. Luminal contents become more solid as water is reabsorbed. The liver and portal vessels appear prominently in the frame, showing first-pass metabolism of absorbed nutrients. Narration. From intestine to portal blood, nutrients first visit the liver. Glycogen synthesis, detoxification, and lipid processing shape what circulates. The colon reclaims water and houses a teeming microbiome that ferments residuals into gases and short-chain fatty acids that are beneficial for colonite health and systemic metabolism. Anatomical explanation. Liver and portal system. Blood from the gut flows via the portal vein to the liver. Hepatocytes convert glucose to glycogen, synthesize plasma proteins, albumin, package lipids, and detoxify xenobiotics. First-pass metabolism modifies compounds absorbed from Soto, example, certain spice metabolites, small amounts of alcohol if consumed. Colon. The large intestine reabsorbs water and electrolytes. Resident bacteria ferment non-digestible carbohydrates, dietary fiber from vegetables and broth solids, into short-chain fatty acids, acetate, propionate, and butyrate, that are beneficial for colonite health and systemic metabolism. Positive effects. Microbiome fermentation yields SCFAs that nourish colon cells, support immune regulation, and can modulate glucose and lipid metabolism. Water and electrolyte reclamation prevents dehydration. Liver processing supplies systemic nutrients in regulated form. Negative effects. Excessive sodium increases renal and vascular load. Saturated fats and refined carbohydrates can produce transient postprandial oxidative stress and increase triglycerides. Dysbiosis, or imbalanced microbiome, or pathogens can lead to gas, bloating, or inflammation, visualized as swelling or hyperemia along colon segments. Excessive bile acids not reabsorbed can irritate colon mucosa, producing diarrhea. Visual notes. Render the portal vein as a visible translucent vessel channeling bright red nutrient-rich blood into the liver lobules. Hepatocytes arranged in plates with bile canaliculi faintly visible. In the colon, depict a stylized community of microbes as tiny, non-detailed symbions fermenting fibers with small gas bubbles rising slowly. Residue advances to the rectum. Defecation is the final mechanical step. The body has already harvested energy, rebuilt tissues, and balanced fluids. Systemically, hormones and immune signals respond to what was eaten, a complex conversation between organ systems. Elimination. Water reabsorption in colon concentrates feces, and rectal distension triggers defecation reflex involving pelvic floor muscles and external anal sphincter control. Hormonal responses. Glucose uptake stimulates insulin release from pancreatic beta cells, promoting glycogen synthesis and fat storage. Incretins, like GLP-1 and GIP, enhance insulin secretion and slow gastric emptying. Leptin and ghrelin signals adjust satiety for subsequent meals. Cardiovascular and metabolic effects. A typical portion of Soto Ayam provides carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. Moderate intake supports energy and tissue repair. However, high sodium can temporarily raise blood pressure. Large fatty meals cause postprandial lipemia and a transient increase in inflammatory markers such as CRP and cytokines in susceptible individuals. Immune outcome. Most pathogens are neutralized by stomach acid and intestinal defenses, but immune activation may occur if microbes or antigens breach the mucosal barrier. Chronic repeated exposure to high salt, high saturated fat diets contributes over time to metabolic and cardiovascular risk. Positive closing note. When prepared and eaten mindfully, Soto Ayam supplies balanced macronutrients, hydration, amino acids, and flavor that contribute to nourishment, social well-being, and gut microbiota support, when accompanied by fiber and vegetables.